everybody. Welcome back to another fun-filled episode of Tyman on Tap. We're recording today on October 14th, 2014. We have I'm going to screw this up, the Mountains of the Moon.
That's correct.
Yes. In studio today.
There's no is there?
Mountains of the Moon. Just like the song, right? It was on XL.
That's right.
So,
No
anyway.
Just Mountains of the Moon.
Mountains of the Moon. So make sure, next week we have Run Jenny, which is a band of some sort of musical performance genre. We'll find out next week. Okay, so, we're on Facebook, Tyman on Tap. We're on Google+. Nobody else is, so it doesn't really matter. We're on Twitter, Tyman on Tap Show. YouTube/Tyman on Tap. iTunes, Stitcher. All your favorite podcasting applications. We're on Flickr, flickr.com/TymanOnTap. Instagram, TymanOnTap. All right, so we have another fun, exciting, jam-packed episode with a band that's, I guess, semi-local. One of their members is not local, but I guess the rest of their band is rather local. So let me introduce to you Mountains of the Moon.
Yeah. How you doing? Good to have us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you guys on. So why don't you just go down the line? You guys can introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, I'm Mike Scarpo. I had the band Mountains of the Moon, Grateful Dead tribute. Strictly Grateful Dead, pretty much.
No government mule?
No mule. Although I love them, what an influence. So I've had this band together for about 4 years now, and it's been going well. I've had help from such folks as, you want to introduce yourselves?
Scott Guberman, keyboards.
Yep, and Tim Morse on bass has been working with me for about a year. He's been a big help. And I played with Scott a handful of times. And these are big staples in the Grateful Dead tribute scene, and it's an honor for me to finally get this project together that I've wanted to have for so many years, and done everything else in between except play with a classical orchestra pretty much. And now get to work with such, as I say, staples in the scene, people coming from all these wild cities and spending lots of money to come and be on my stage. So I'm happy with the way things are going.
So you two, so you guys were in other Grateful Dead, or currently in other Grateful Dead bands?
Still am, yeah. Whoever lets me play with them.
Yeah.
But mostly Shakedown, which we play pretty much every weekend. Keeps me the busiest, I would say.
Yeah.
But like I said, various other Grateful Dead tribute bands here and there. Tim and I used to play in Liberty Bus, which is pretty much now defunct. But
Oh, you were in Liberty Bus?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Scott's in every Grateful Dead.
I know, it happened.
Yeah.
One time or another.
And the two of us back in the day were in Shakedown, and then I took a hiatus and recently am back.
Yeah, I have Scott to blame for pulling me back in. I had taken a hiatus and had made it out, a couple of years, and he kept sweetening the deal with Sage Tea.
Oh, yeah.
I still do a semi-annual gig with them down at the Shenorock Shore Club with the
Yeah, I haven't checked that out.
Kids in
Yeah, I'd like
Greenwich.
to see that one.
Yeah, that's.
You can find us on Facebook, and there's a lot of videos up there. I try to keep current with what the band is doing, and I play with so many different cats. Like I said, from all these different Grateful Dead tribute bands, like Bill Benacchi from the Stella Blues Band, Cat Walkerson from the Garcia Project, and Johnny Chang who plays with Shakedown, and Dan Crea, he's out of Boston. He plays with the Garcia Project. He also plays with Fenario. I think they're more out Worcester area.
Okay.
Yeah. So, other big name cats. That these great bands going on right now. There's really not a lacking of Grateful Dead tribute talent. That's really I think I'm just glad to be part of the scene finally and have things really going on.
It amazes me after 35 years doing it that it can still bring a lot of fun for the musicians as well as bringing it to the audience that still is, introducing new freshman class every year.
Yeah,
So
pretty much.
So you're now in like so you two obviously have been doing this for a while, and you for the last 4 years or so. So now, like if the people who are less than 30 have never had the opportunity to even see the Grateful Dead live. Like Jerry Garcia died when like I was like 10 years old or whatever. So people my age and younger, this is a band of the past. It could have been like Buddy Holly or whatever. So you found like the younger generation? How do they still relate to this band that's never really been around?
There's no doubt about it. Yeah. In my case, Shakedown plays one Friday every month at Toad's Place. We sell the place out, and it's the majority of the people there are, the 18-year-old, 19-year-old crowd, and whatever it is, I don't know what gets them started, but they are definitely into it. They definitely get it. They get the culture of it. It's slightly different than the '60s, but it's people might look different, but overall the thing is, they get it, and it's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the internet helps with all the available live shows that the Grateful Dead are allowing to be out there, and there's just tons of access to all of that, and if you listen to it enough, you're bound to get into it. If you're in the right state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
You made a good point about the culture of it, though, too. Is certainly. And I've been reminded the last 2 weeks about the culture of it, the 50th anniversary of the band, as well as the 50th anniversary tour of the Pranksters and the Further Bus.
Oh yeah.
The namesake of the Further band as well. The culture, as it were, counterculture, as it used to be, that surrounds it is a lot of what attracts the kids, and
Grateful Dead is always going to be tied to that.
Yeah, and I think that this is just like the next generation of people, like GDF, Grateful Dead family, and these are the kids that were infants when we used to actually follow the Dead, when the Dead were still playing. Like you started spring '87 or something, same as I did, and right up to the end, the kids of the younger generation, I was 25 when Garcia died. These are their offspring, and they're they're being brought up.
Right.
And this whole scene, which is still going, you got Phil Lesh and friends playing Further. There's really and like you were saying, all the internet exposure to that kind of thing that's available.
Yeah, and the Grateful Dead tribute bands that are decent at doing
right,
that.
and
Give
stepping
people
up
a
and
sort
pushing
of
it.
idea what the live shows might have been like.
So like a band say Dark Star Orchestra that has like a big setup, and they fill up like places like the Oakdale. So do you? So do you guys? Are you guys? I know we do belittle you. Are you guys at the
No,
same
we
side?
play at a smoky little Austrian club, private bars, private
outdoor
parties, garden
festivals,
parties, things of
stuff
this
like
nature.
And to be quite honest about it, there probably is no other Grateful Dead tribute band in the same category.
No,
as
they're
Orchestra.
the leaders of the pack, and they have been, I think, for quite a while.
And they're probably the only guys with the tour bus doing the whole thing.
Yeah, and they play 4 or 5 shows a week for months at a time. And you go, it seems like, if you go on and check out dates, they're all over the country. I mean, hats off to them. That's big inspiration, Just like, Shakedown was a big inspiration for me, or, like Bill Donaki, another one, with the Stella Blues Band. We worked together, and he really inspired me, to really get things, going and take it seriously. And I was just, lucky to be at the right place at the right time, I guess, to really put it all together. And Jordan G. and Greco, he was another huge help. He probably played the first, 19 or 20 shows with me. And now he's doing so well with Viral Sound that he's booked all weekend long, with bigger gigs than I'm pulling together. But he was really a big help, and I got to give him credit. And Viral Sound too, they're a ripping jam band.
So we're gonna take a 30-second break. So they're gonna show some PSAs, tell people to eat healthy and not smoke cigarettes. When we come back, I'm gonna talk to you about the process of getting a band together. All right, so let's go to break. All right, and we're back. So you drove. You seem like the driver of this band. So you put this together. How did you go about finding people that want to play? I'm assuming that obviously you guys are musicians, so you guys like playing, and you guys are big Grateful Dead fans, so you want to play Grateful Dead stuff. But so how do you go about asking people who already have commitments to other bands, like, hey, do you want to do another project? And how is your project different than other projects, or is it all kind of the same?
Well, as far as putting it all together, like I said, I've been playing so much different music for so many years, and finally I broke up with one band, Torque. Well, I didn't really break up. It just kind of, I fell apart from it, and I was with them for 9 years. I was more like a heavy, creepy underground rock band.
Yeah.
But so I took like a year. Really, it was like exact opposite of the Grateful Dead. But I took like a year, getting things together, and it just all fell together. Like Jordan Gene Greco, like I said, was a big part because I was playing with him at open mics and stuff, and we got to know each other a little bit. And there was a spot available at a festival that I actually had the opportunity. I was asked to headline it. That was at Lorenzo's there. And, I like Bill Benacchi from the Stella Blues Band. He came to play. Kat Walkerson came to play. She plays with Mick Bundy and the Garcia Project. Actually, I went to high school with her, too. So it's funny how, actually there were a bunch of people out of Hamden High, like around my class, that really took things, and a few people that are really, in the clique right now, and continued to work with them, like Emmett Hale,
Rob Bonacorso,
Rob Bonacorso.
Double drummers at the Austrian Club this month.
Yeah, and you can find out more about that show actually on our Facebook page. If you Facebook Mountains of the Moon, probably 30 videos on there from all these different shows. Check out what we're about. We got a radio show coming up at the end of the week.
WESU.
Yeah, that's right. It's
Wesleyan
Uncle John's show called Dead Air. He just celebrated his 10th anniversary with that.
So so is your lineup ever evolving, or do you have a core?
Oh yeah, it's definitely ever evolving. As far as I guess people tell me it's like it's like I'm like the focused one. Sometimes everybody's watching what I do, so I got to kind of lead the whole thing because it's a different lineup every time. And I sometimes feel like I don't even want to say it, but if I stopped playing, I don't know what would happen because everybody's focused on what I'm doing, and because I'm leading, I do all the lead vocals. Well, 90 what? 6 or 8%.
Pick up the slack if we need.
Yeah, Scott. With the Bob Weir songs and the Jerry Garcia songs, and I'm playing lead guitar, and there's a lot of stuff, especially with the Bob Weir songs, that's where Garcia does really riffy stuff. Yeah. Where it's like if I gotta sing too, it takes a lot of work for me to get those songs together. But we just started playing with a guy on rhythm, Ken Vankara, and he formerly of Liberty Bus, yeah, and he's starting to pick up some of the slack, singing, Bob Weir stuff that allows me to do what kind of, staples that song down a little bit, the Jerry riffs that got to be there. So I'm glad for that. He's definitely welcome to play. That's for sure.
So there's a lot. You guys are in a lot of different projects, it seems. So what's special about this project compared to other projects? I mean, obviously it's your project, so it's probably near and dear to you.
Questions for them.
Every Grateful Dead project is special because the Grateful Dead went through so many different style changes, different eras, mostly probably dictated by the different keyboards that they had, which were 5 altogether.
So that explains Touch of Grey?
What's that?
That explains Touch of Grey?
Sure, absolutely. So there's bands who don't even know how to play Touch of Grey because they're mostly focused on stuff that was in the 70s or, whatever, prior to that or after that.
Yeah.
There's bands that only listen to early 80s, or there's bands that are only focused on, late 80s, instrumentation-wise too. There's bands that have the equipment that are best suited for certain eras. So each project that I've been involved in, they have a different focus. They're influenced by a different part of the Grateful Dead, which, when we're talking about different eras of the Grateful Dead, we're talking about different bands, really. They just sound completely different.
Different decades, I mean,
So, yeah.
cultural changes as well, the music changes with the cultural changes over decades of time. And I remember in a band, you mentioned Touch of Grey and Helen and Buck, before those were even released on albums. I remember playing in Dead bands that were playing those songs, only having heard them through live performances.
Right before.
We were already then doing them in our live performances.
Right.
So,
which is cool, but
yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it seemed
right
like at that time in the Grateful Dead's career, once that album was released with Helen and Buck and Touch of Grey, a lot of the hardcore family people kind of shunned it. It seemed like, but a lot of the crowds from these different cities that they would play wanted to hear that stuff, and I don't blame them. It's good material.
It spoke to what the Dead did, both the Jerry tune and the Bobby tune there, and it was where they were in their music, and that's where this band, as far as Mountains of the Moon goes, does some more, I don't want to say eclectic, but some of the more obscure, less played, if you go across a broad spectrum of Dead bands, that there's a handful of tunes that you won't ordinarily see there. And I think that's part of what attracted me after, doing it for 30 plus years, to look at that and say, oh, here's tunes that I've been playing for 30 years, and he's playing some of the tunes that, even after 30 years, we still hadn't played them.
That's cool. That's cool. So it's almost like that a fan could be a fan of a certain period of the Grateful Dead and not really, like, I guess with any band you could dislike other periods of time, but I feel like the way you guys are describing that, because their career is so long and so eclectic, that each project, like, it's whatever is dictated by the interest of those members, right? So, like, so the way I'm hearing you described, you guys are very eclectic. So do you guys, each member of the band, like a different part of the Grateful Dead?
Well, I think Scarpo and I are pretty much on the same page as far as our influences.
Yeah.
And Tim, maybe something a little earlier. Probably,
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I would say that I was from I guess I'm a couple of years older than them, not a lot, but got into it earlier in '79. Caught the tail end of
pre-Brent.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, so I had a few years earlier that was powerful in that cultural aspect of the Dead, and as it changed, I mean, I went along for the ride, not to coin their song, certainly, and I enjoyed every bit of it, each period, and I like to take cross-sections of all the periods, and we've talked about that when I've got real serious with bands, of saying, let's put together the, quintessential show. And, would start out with some of that Oxymoxia early on in the Grateful Dead album and work your way through the catalog of tunes, which is very difficult when there's hundreds of tunes and you got to condense it into one night show or, a couple of night shows where you're rotating around a stock of 100 tunes and you want to condense it down into 20 or 30 tunes to make a powerful show. That's where you get some difficulty in deciding what those 20 or 30 tunes are going to be and how to best present those in a potentially, if it's not just exciting for you, you want to go out and be able to make a living doing it, semi-professional, I call myself at it, because we try to at least pay for our gas and drinks to get down there and have some fun doing it. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Hey, my cousin's a gig musician and once made $5 to drive from Boston, Massachusetts to New York, play a show, and come back.
There you go.
Really?
So, yeah.
If you got $5.
We've done, we do a happy hour at New Haven, there at Cafe 9. I guess I can mention the club there that we actually do without specifically mentioning that it's just a happy hour once a month or so. And, we basically are working for tips. And if there's only a few people there, we only make a few tips. There's plenty of nights that we go home with $8 for gas money.
So you guys take advantage of open mic nights then? Because you can just go in there and practice, basically.
Right. I think we're going to do that tomorrow, we decided, down the street there.
We definitely should.
Yeah,
I host one every week. It was on Wednesdays somewhere.
You host that?
Yeah.
That one tomorrow?
Yeah, with Eric Kurtz from Dizzy Fish, another band I'm involved in that's not Grateful Dead at all. But
All right, so let's take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll wrap up. All right, so now we're back. So let's talk about, you guys are obviously very influenced by the Grateful Dead. Is there any other bands that have influenced you? Obviously, you played in an opposite genre than this before. Like, are there other bands? I mean, obviously, there's probably similar bands, jam bands that you guys listen to, but are there anything surprising that inspired you guys?
Well, you know what? I'll jump first and say that because it's obscure that, I'm into a lot of different types of music, but my first, like Led Zeppelin were my first band. It was the first band. I was like 11 and I got this cassette and I just, couldn't stop listening to it. And over the years I just, I was so into Zeppelin through all my teens, and I gotta say that, even though I paid so much tribute to the Grateful Dead, I love Led Zeppelin just as much. And the same thing with Steely Dan. I got turned on to them as a young kid too, and it really stuck, and I just got deeper and deeper into it. I listen to more Dead than anything because, I'm working on the project, and I just, and there was so much live stuff available when we were growing up. There's so much. It was different. It wasn't the album over and over and over. But like I said, I can't really decide on one of those three bands that I like more.
But,
and they're all completely different,
but,
So, and there were a lot of jazz artists that I was into too. Like, Jim Hall and Pat Metheny. And I could go on, but those are probably my two biggest in jazz. And I studied jazz. The first 5 years I played was that I just wanted to be a jazz buff. And that's kind of what got me to the point early on where I could pull something like this off at any point in my musical career. With all the theory and scales and certain exercises and halves and thirds and fourths and all that. That's a big part of Jerry Garcia's style. So I just fell into that the right way at the right time, I think, and it ended up being really what I wanted to do at the end. So
I was fortunate and had all kinds of classical and even sacred music upbringing, and as far as falling into it goes, the whole electric rock and roll. After I got to 7th grade and they gave me the electric bass for jazz band, that took off into all kinds of different directions as far as rock and roll goes. And falling into the Dead from that was really just loving what they did improvisationally to get from one tune to another. I mean, my own personal taste, I like something a little harder rock, even AC/DC or something like that.
Yeah.
Black and Blue Sunday was one of my favorites as a kid, Make your ears ring at the end of the night.
but,
I don't like anything but the Grateful Dead.
Nice, come on, really?
No, the truth is,
I love you.
maybe there's some truth to that. I kind of definitely look at them up here, and then there's all this other music that's cool too. But
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But
Catch and release
I definitely was influenced by growing up in the '80s by everything that was like starting to happen during my teenage years, which was a lot of jazz fusion, which a mixture of jazz and rock and roll. The big keyboard influence on me was
Brett Midland?
no, I can't think of his name.
Keith Godchild.
Jan Hammer.
Right.
Jan Hammer was probably most notably famous for doing TV shows like Miami Vice theme songs, but he was also part of a band called Al Di Meola. You familiar with that? Probably not. You're too young.
Have you got your clips published with C. Russell Lowe?
What's that?
Have you gotten your clips published?
No, that's a whole other story. No, but so that was stuff that was that definitely had a big influence on me, as well as some of the popular stuff that was on the radio, whatever, heavier rock music you used to listen to and stuff. But overall, yeah, once I got into the Grateful Dead, it was a whole different discovery. The Beatles were always there for me at the very beginning, all the way through my enjoyment of rock and roll too. Obviously, a big influence on the Grateful Dead too, so it all fits in.
Yeah, Grateful Dead, I can definitely see that as shining above all.
You're not really given a chance to love any other band as much as the Grateful Dead. You know, even if you love some of their songs, that no band plays as much as the Grateful Dead. You know, and has a culture that surrounds it that's so fun to be around, and the whole thing. It's just there's so much opportunity to just love everything they're doing, and at the time follow their transitions and different styles and stuff. So there was as much as you could like any other band, you're not given the opportunity to
do
have
that.
such a work of
you're right.
Art
of music.
Yeah, so just really reference.
Why do you think? I mean, I know there's some Beatles cover bands, but like the bands like the Beatles or the Stones or whoever, there's not this like whole following of people that just want to play them. Like, because if you get a Beatles cover band, they're gonna dress like the Beatles. They're not gonna be like a bunch of dudes playing the Beatles. Like, why don't you have this like that culture following like Beatles and the Rolling Stones?
I think it's just that they just never played live. They never toured as extensively as the Dead did, which was, I don't know, 200 to 300, nights a year at times. So there was that opportunity for people really to build a life around this traveling band, and not having. I mean, Mike did it. Just never went home for
The culture,
a couple of months
along
and
with
watched
the counterculture that's around it.
Yeah,
so
that's
and obviously
like it.
It's more than a cult following. Even it's a real I always thought a band like U2 they had a heavy a heavy fan base. People who love them. Really love them. I'm talking about the early U2.
That's their new album they put on everybody's phones.
Yes, they've definitely changed now. But I mean, back in the day, they had a real cult following.
Yeah.
People who loved them were diehards, and I guarantee if a band like that toured as extensively as Grateful Dead did, then they'd probably have that sort of following. And today there'd be U2 cover bands that people would flock to and love, but no other band was given the fans that amount of opportunity to just really be dedicated and live it.
Yeah, I think the only thing that ever came close is it was Fish, really.
Oh dear God.
Yeah. All right. Well.
What about Dave Matthews? No.
Oh, and DMB. My sister's seen them almost as many times as I've seen the Dead. I've seen like 180 shows.
My brother.
She's almost there.
My brother is 27 years old. Seen Dave Matthews more times than than years he's been alive.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
One time we went to see him 3 times in 1 year, which is impressive because he only plays 2 shows in Hartford a year, so he had to go somewhere else to see them.
Well,
that was the idea
like
of going on tour with the Dead.
Right, it's like my
you see
sister
17 shows in a year,
Right.
With the Dave Matthews Band, she makes a good check, and she flies all over the place and stays at the DoubleTree and this and that. Right? I used to sell beer out of a tent. To get to the next show. It was
a little different, right?
But yeah, she's really into the Dave Matthews Band, and she knows crew and this and that. She's got pictures with Dave, and she's one of those people that's really sunk into the scene that isn't still in college.
Yeah, I think
she learned that from me.
I think that there's definitely those bands that try to adopt that culture, and the fans have tried to make it happen as well. I think Fish and Dave Matthews are great examples, but it'll always just be that it's kind of like the Grateful Dead scene. It's just just
a devotion,
longer career.
What about the Floyd bands that are performing? I feel like there's a few of those guys out there.
Yeah, Australian Floyd.
Yeah,
there's huge acts. Yeah.
Yeah, and they always do well. It's great music, no doubt about it. But same thing. What's missing there is you're not going to have tons of Pink Floyd cover bands that are selling places out ever. I don't think.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're running out of time, guys. So I really want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Tyman. I had a great time.
Don't underestimate the power of the pranksters.
Yeah, we are the pranks. Officially.
All right.
He has no idea what that means.
Well, there's somebody who's watching. We're married.
That's the important part.
Mm-hmm.
All right. See you guys later.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Aloha.